Welcome back to the Stormcrow Show. My name is Josh.
I'm Brady.
And today we're going to discuss a couple things here related to the recent unbannings of Jace the Mind Sculptor and Bloodbraid Elf in Modern for Magic the Gathering. Specifically, we're going to cover arguments that have been raised either by Wizards or others. Maybe more like concerns is a better word, I should say. And what we're going to do is we'll list those arguments, but then we'll give you the counter arguments, not because we're taking a side here, but just to help you think broader about this issue, and let you come to your own conclusion, of course, but just help us process this dramatic change.
Right, and I think these unbannings were a very bold move by Wizards of the Coast. I know other content creators on YouTube have mentioned that they seem to feel that this is the make or break year for Magic the Gathering. Wizards has gone through some rocky times recently, and as a result of that, some players have started drifting away, and this could be the chance. Wizards is clearly hoping that this could be the chance to help revitalize the game and revitalize the format, bringing players back to it. However, on the flip side of that, if they're wrong, these bannings could end up just pushing them into even more rocky times.
Yeah, the unbannings, yeah.
Or unbannings.
Well, I guess it would be probably they'd have to reban him at that point or something if there was a problem.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. On that point, there's going to be some discussion on predictions of, in the event this happens, what will Wizards do, sort of thing. But that's part two, if you will, or not part two, but that's later in this episode. Anyway, so on to the arguments. One point that at least I've seen one person more or less suggest is Modern is already healthy. We commented this in our restricted list video, and I think Wizards actually acknowledges this in their own unban announcement, which I'll link below. So if it's healthy, why change? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, sort of thing.
Right, and with this, it's really important to keep in mind that there's so many cards that are in the format, but because we're in a healthy spot right now, if things start heading south, we can pretty much point to one of two cards that would have caused the format to go that way. And so it should be pretty easy to figure this out if things start going bad. Plus, in October, and I think you mentioned this to me, was the fact that Wizards of the Coast was hoping to unban something, which they obviously want to keep the ban list as small as they can.
That's a stated goal.
So I think that's just one thing to keep in mind is it's going to be one of two cards that mess this up.
Yeah, one or both, I suppose. But yeah. It's the fact that it's healthy. If it gets sick, they'll know why it got sick.
Exactly, because there are no new standard sets coming out between now and the next.
Not till April, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
that's one reason. The other factor, of course, is that Wizards says, "Hey, Jace is getting printed in Masters 25." So the sort of cynical view of this is that this is a cash grab. The kind of counter argument to that is, well, it's kind of two parts to it. One is that, again, going back to the October thing, if they were planning to unban Jace for a while, then they were going to do it. And if that was the case, can you imagine if they didn't reprint it?
Right.
And then they unban it? And that would go over well, really, with a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yeah, and, what... we, with one of our viewers, actually had a really good discussion on this, and we really kind of, we talked about this, and the viewpoint is, if they didn't reprint Jace in Masters 25, there would probably be very little limit on how much he would go for on the secondary market. As of right now, he's decently expensive. Like, he's probably the most expensive card now available in the Modern format, outside of like Judge foils or promo cards or that kind of thing. But his price would be so much worse, probably, if he wasn't getting reprinted at all, considering the 3 sets that he was printed in typically had pretty low print runs.
Right. Right, and I think that's it's an important point that if they were planning to unban him, it was just more of the timing of when they unbanned him, and so this might be the right choice. Just for they were going to do it no matter what. The question was when. I think is more, and if that's the case, then yeah, that would be that's the counter argument. That is. The final one of Wizards brings this up. A lot of people bring this up actually for why you should like all the proponents of Bloodbraid as well as Jace have said, well, tapping out on turn 4 is not an instant win, so that's fine. So Jace, you don't win instantly when you cast Jace the Mind Sculptor. I mean, what does he do? Brainstorms.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Bloodbraid is maybe a potential instant win, but it's not backbreaking, and that's Wizards' argument as well. Excuse me. The counter argument is that the reason why Bloodbraid was banned in the first place is because mid-range decks were, really hard to, there was just Jund, basically.
Yep.
For mid-range decks at the time, and then, Jace would kind of do the same thing for control decks. So would that mean, decks like Obzan or the Mardu Pyromancer or Jeskai Tempo, would those all just disappear? Well, I mean, would the decks that we're familiar with, would they just shrink to just 2 decks? Basically, Jund and Jace.
And that really is the question, because as Wizards points out in their article, these 2 cards really did dominate the formats that they were in initially, but again, when Jace was first printed, that was before Modern was even a format.
Right.
And with Bloodbraid Elf, Jund was pretty much the only mid-range deck you could play. However, since then, we've gotten so many new cards that, and this is Wizards' argument, is there's been so many new cards that theoretically all of these mid-range decks and slower decks should be able to compete with each other without one overshadowing the others.
Yeah.
And that would be the ideal situation for sure.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because, well, Jace has never been in the format because he was preemptively banned before when Modern was first becoming a thing. And when Bloodbraid was in it, Jund absolutely dominated.
Yeah. And basically the times Jund didn't dominate was when you had either Birthing Pod or Storm.
Exactly.
Which is not really a good measure against...
Well,
notably, those have also taken a lot of hits in the ban list as well. For
sure.
So I don't know if it's that might tell you something there. So here's hoping that it. I think it's fair to say we hope that this works out well, and I think that's everybody's hope. In fact, well, unless you hate the card, but that's not a good basis to actually ban a card ever.
No.
So, the big argument is that basically the slower decks would be, their diversity in those types of decks would be reduced with this change, but maybe they won't, and the hope is that they don't. But that's where the argument stands, and I'm going to include a few articles below that did some testing just to show you what their take on it is, and you can take it or leave it, but it's a very fascinating read, and you can certainly read the comments below on that as well. I think they did a good job discussing the concerns one way or another. All right. So, without wasting too much time here, we got everything, right, for the main points?
Yeah.
Okay. Going to predictions. Basically, there's 2 ways this goes. One, it works out, which is what we would hope, right? Everything's fine. People could buy their Jaces, play their Jaces, and they're legitimate strategies, but it's not dominant for blue. You don't have to play Jace to play a blue control mid-range deck if you don't want to. Same with Bloodbraid for Jund. You don't have to play Jund. You can play Obzan or whatever. And everything's fine. On the flip side, and this is what a lot of people are afraid of, is that everything will not be fine. And this format's going to get really messed up. If that's the case, so what does Wizards do? And I think the first option is pretty obvious, right?
Yeah. And that is going to be if one or both of these cards get banned. Which, on that note, I would say that if one was going to get banned, I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be Jace the Mind Sculptor. He just has so much utility, and Bloodbraid Elf can fly under the radar so much easier than Jace can.
Yeah.
So that's the first point. The second point, Josh, I'll let you tackle that one.
Well, actually, quickly, before we get to that, I should mention that if they ban both cards, they might not even ban them at the same time. They could. But they might, I think they would probably fair to say they would ban Jace first. Because I suspect of the two, he would more likely overshadow Bloodbraid. So if Bloodbraid's causing trouble as well, it won't be obvious until Jace is out of the format first. Anyway.
Right.
I mean, if there was that scenario. Again, hope that doesn't happen. Option 2. Wizard creates new cards to counter them. And this would be like, maybe they print a card that messes up Planeswalkers really bad, that's really playable as a sideboard card. Or maybe messes up free casting for a Cascade. That sort of thing. There's a lot of options Wizards could do, but they could literally print a new card in an upcoming set to resolve concerns in the Modern format, potentially, without messing Standard up, theoretically, too.
Yeah, and on that note, this is a strategy they've embraced in the past, because you could argue that when Fatal Push was printed in Aether Revolt, Fatal Push was never printed for Standard. It was really printed for Modern, because that's where it definitely has had its biggest impact, even since day one, considering how many powerhouses it can hit.
Yep. Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that's definitely a strategy they could do. And then, of course, the third strategy, which Josh and I suggested a few videos ago.
Yeah, shameless plug.
Yeah, is the restricted list idea.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that, I mean, and we were talking about this earlier, I mean, think about it. I mean, you go out and buy Jace the Mind Sculptor. Let's say Masters 25 comes out and Jace drops to, say, $90. Or to make it simple, $100. Because right now he's, what, like 120?
Yeah.
So it drops to 100. That's probably a little too high, but let's say 100. So you buy 4 of them because you only own 0. And so you paid $400, you have all your Jaces, and then Wizards bans Jace from Modern. And then Jace's value drops, which makes him harder to sell off. You can still sell him. You feel really bad, but also you can't play with him in Modern. And so that's kind of frustrating. The concern, whereas the restricted list, what that would do is, yes, that would still somewhat happen, but at least you can play one Jace in Modern. And I think he's strong enough that a single Jace is still worth playing if you can.
Yep.
And on the flip side is, that means other people will still want him for Modern. So if you have 4 copies and all your friends don't, well, you can trade with them.
Yeah, and it's by no means a perfect fix.
Right.
But at the same time, going from 4 Jaces down to 0 is going to hurt your investment a lot more than going from 4 Jaces down to 1.
Yeah, yeah. And also playability and fun things.
Sure.
Funness.
Yeah.
If that's a word.
Funness is a word. 100%.
Great. Check it on Urban Dictionary. No, don't check Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, never mind.
Okay. Well, is there any other points we want to cover?
No, I think that was everything. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It really means a lot. I cannot even begin to say how much that helps us out. So, and with that, I'm Brady.
And I'm Josh.
And this has been the Stormcrow Show.
Have a great day.